And folks, we are back. Tommy Gann here, TG. And folks, listen. The Oregon Ducks, 15-0, undefeated. Heisman candidate, Heisman finalist quarterback. Wonderkind head coach. The big brand billionaire Phil Knight, bankrolling it all. Huge, massive, number one team in the country, number one team in the playoff, the Big Ten champions. Just everyone saying that they're going to win it all. Just hand them the trophy right now. Just give it to them. They have a SEC caliber defense. They're SEC caliber in the trenches. You know, the games are just a formality for them. Dan Lanning has it on lock. He's playing for wins, not for clicks, folks. That's what they were saying. That's what a lot of people were saying. And then, on New Year's Day, in the picturesque city of Pasadena at the Rose Bowl, it can be described with 3 words what Ohio State did to Oregon. Belt to ass. An absolute ass whooping took place at the granddaddy of them all. I mean, folks, final score, Ohio State 41, Oregon 21, and it ain't even as close as the score says. We were told in the trenches that Oregon had this elite group. Guess what? Dylan Gabriel sacked 8 times by Ohio State. You want to know how many times Will Howard was sacked by Oregon? Zilch. Nada. 0, folks. 0. How about the running backs? How about the running game? Oregon running backs combined for 21 rush yards on the game. 21. Ohio State running backs, 179. This Oregon defense overall could not handle a freak of nature like Jeremiah Smith and let Will Howard, who I think a lot of people have thought has been somewhat underwhelming throughout this year. He wasn't last week against Tennessee, but overall people think he's been underwhelming. He killed him. He crushed him. It wasn't close. I mean, I understand it's tough to beat a team twice. It is. I think in sports, we all know this, especially in football. But I mean, the last time these two teams played, in October, Oregon won by 1 point. It was a close game. Ohio State probably should have won the game. This time, I mean, you put up a fight a little bit, Oregon. Put up a little bit of a fight. Nope, they did not. They got absolutely creamed in this game. The University of Oregon. The best way to describe the University of Oregon: always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Dan Lanning has a lot of tough talk. He's the big guy. Oh, he's going to take it going there. He's going to make him get somewhere finally. He's going to finally bring him a national championship for the first time in school history in football. Phil Knight's going to give him all the money in the world, and nothing in the world's going to stop him. Turns out it ain't the case. It ain't the case. I don't know when Oregon's going to be able to win a national championship, with a better team than this. This was a great team. If you can't even get close with this team, what the heck are we doing? If I'm an Oregon fan, I ain't happy. I ain't happy at all. Now, I'll give some credit here. Ryan Day, he beats Tennessee, and then he puts belt to ass against Oregon after people were calling for his neck. Now, you get a little bit of breathing room. And next week, they do have to, well, not next week, but next game they do have to play Texas. They're going to be favored. And I think they're going to be able to win that game as well. I think it'll be a tougher challenge than what they got against Tennessee. And I got to be honest, it'll probably be a tougher challenge than what they got in this game against Oregon. Pitiful. Overall, these playoff games have sucked. Overall, for the most part. The first round sucked. Most of these games sucked. Obviously, this game was not a whole lot of fun. The one game that I felt like was really, really good, Arizona State versus Texas. I think a lot of people thought Arizona State was going to get blown out of the water. 14.5-point underdogs. People were saying the Big 12 can't compete with the big bad SEC. Well, guess what? Cam Scatabo came to frickin' play. He came to frickin' play. Now, people are going to be yelling and screaming about that no call on the targeting. And maybe that should have been called. But I think the bigger thing is the fact that Arizona State, in overtime, had a chance. They had fourth down. They had the 4th and long on the 28-yard line. They had the chance to end the game right there and move on. Instead, they gave up a touchdown right on that play. And then when it flipped back around and Texas got the ball again in the second OT first time around, guess what? Touchdown first play. So at the end, Arizona State can only blame themselves there at the end, but they gave them a tough challenge, a tough battle. And for a while, also to get some more credit, Boise State gave Penn State a little bit of a tough battle there for a while, but they couldn't push it through. They couldn't do the whole Genty thing where Genty carries the team. They couldn't do it against a superior opponent like Penn State at all. That's just how it goes. Then today, so let's flash back for a second. Flash back to November of 2021. November 2021. Brian Kelly, longtime head coach at Notre Dame, in a shocking move, gets out of Dodge, leaves, and heads down south to LSU. And the thought process is, this is a really good head coach, but he's being held back by the fact that he has to coach at a private university like Notre Dame that can't, pull out all the stops like LSU can. And that was what people were thinking. And that's probably why he moved on. It's probably why he moved on. And then Notre Dame brings in Marcus Freeman. He has a couple of tough losses in the first couple years there. He has a tough loss this year against Northern Illinois. Shout out Northern Illinois. But you flash forward to today. And Marcus Freeman with Notre Dame now has a bigger win in the state of Louisiana than Brian Kelly has had in his 3 seasons at LSU. By far. A gigantic win, a huge win, 23-10 over Georgia. Now, yes, Carson Beck was out. Gunnar Stockton was not great. But it's not like without Carson Beck, it's not like you're missing a Joe Burrow or a Cam Newton or something. You ain't. You see what I mean? And they still have incredible talent on both sides of the ball. And yet, Notre Dame outplayed them thoroughly. They got out-coached. Marcus Freeman looked like an elite coach out there against a guy like Kirby Smart, who has 2 national titles. I mean, credit where credit is due to this Notre Dame team and to Marcus Freeman. And if I were an LSU fan, I am pissed because I feel like I got railroaded. It turns out, probably, it wasn't a case of, Notre Dame's not good enough for Brian Kelly. It's that Brian Kelly wasn't good enough at Notre Dame. And now we're seeing the same thing happen with Brian Kelly at LSU. And yes, he coached a Heisman winner there. Sure. Great. Awesome. What, they get 9 wins that season? Come on. Not even close to the playoff. Marcus Freeman, shout out to you, man. Good on you. For Georgia, obviously a bit of an up and down season. They won the SEC and got the bye. However, and this is something, the old argument in sports is rest versus rust. Is it better to be well rested and be ready to play? Or are you in danger of getting rusty and not being prepared to come out and play? That seems to be one of those things that people go back and forth on, and they have for years. But if there's anything we've learned from these playoffs, and honestly from how Major League Baseball has formatted their playoffs, it seems like at elite levels, we're seeing a lot more cases of rust being a bigger issue than not having rest. I mean, all 4 teams that had byes lost in the quarterfinals. All 4 teams. Oregon, Arizona State, Boise State, and Georgia. And yes, Arizona State and Boise State were both pretty significant underdogs. I don't think anyone thought they were going to win. But Georgia is a juggernaut. Oregon, number one team in the country, undefeated, playing a team that they had beaten before. I understand it's tough to beat a team twice, but still, they beat them before. And yet, they all lost. They all lost. So now, coming up, it'll be Notre Dame, Penn State, and Ohio State taking on Texas. Going to be a couple of really great matchups. If I were to, make some predictions here, I think Ohio State wins, and I think Notre Dame wins. Listen, I like Penn State. I don't love Drew Aller. I don't love James Franklin in a big spot like this, because this is a big spot. They just got a big win. Penn State has had kind of the easy road so far. I mean, they've had to play, SMU, who is now a power conference team, but very recently was not. And then they got to play Boise State, who is definitely not a power conference team. Well, Notre Dame has played to play a Indiana team that is looking better and better as these games are going on. Better and better. And then, they had to beat an SEC juggernaut like Georgia. SEC champs. Backup QB? Maybe. Don't win the SEC championship. I don't think that Gunnar Stockton is automatically leaps and bounds worse than Carson Beck. I'm just saying. Moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about the NFL, which is almost the end of the regular season. Almost time for basketball to take center stage. Sooner rather than later, crazy enough. However, one more week left in the NFL regular season. And this weekend is a special one for one certain running back. Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley. He was a great running back with the Giants. Great running back. And, he had some tough years with injuries, a couple of tough seasons. The Giants decided to invest in Daniel Jones, and they decided to let him flutter away. They didn't even really try to bring him back. And he signed with the Eagles. And Giants fans acted like that was some, act of treachery, but you didn't even try to bring him back. But people thought his, career was on its last legs. Who cares? Well, guess what? Going into this game, he has passed the 2,000-yard marker, and he is 101 yards away from the all-time single-season rushing record held by Eric Dickerson. An incredible accomplishment. A huge thing for a guy that people left for dead. And guess who he's playing in this last game? The New York Football Giants. Can you think of anything more poetic? Can you think of anything that you love more in sports than that? Incredible. You can't wait. It makes a game that was going to be irrelevant anyways, because playoff seeding was already figured out, relevant. Cool. Very cool. Oh, wait. Never mind. Because Eagles coach Nick Sirianni has decided, bench him. Bench him. We need to rest him for the playoffs. Bench him. And on one hand, you can say, okay, yeah, I get it. You want your guys fresh for the playoffs. You want to make sure they're not injured and all these things like that. However, depriving us, fans, depriving Saquon of the chance to break the single-season rushing record. And I get it, he has an extra game over Eric Dickerson. But still, a huge moment for the game. And you just throw it to the wind. You throw it to the wind. It feels like how in baseball now, guys will have no-hitters in perfect games, and they'll get rid of them because they're getting up to 90 pitches. But it's even worse because this is a single-season record. My goodness. I'm sorry. This just feels like a betrayal to the game of football. It really does. And you know what? Credit to Saquon. He has been a good sport about it. He said, I kind of want to do it. It would be special against the Giants, but, I want to do the best for the team because he's a good teammate. He's a good teammate. But guess what? Someone has to stand up for him, and I'm going to stand up for him. I want to see him break that record. And I bet you, if you said Saquon, do you want to play or not? He probably would say, you know what? Let me play. Let me break that record. Let me show the Giants what they're missing out on. Apparently not. Sadly, apparently not. It sucks. It really sucks. What are you going to do? And then one more NFL thing. The word around the league is that the next game for Aaron Rodgers, the final game of the regular season, will likely be the last game he ever plays for the New York Jets, and probably and possibly the last game he plays in the National Football League. Crazy. Crazy stuff. And listen, people will say I would be dancing on his grave as a Chicago Bears fan who saw him kill me so many times throughout the years. And listen, he did. He did. But when he left the Packers, I legitimately wanted him to do well with the Jets. Truly, honestly, I didn't care as much because he no longer was in Green Bay. So I wasn't rooting for his failures at all. It's kind of sucked what's happened to him these last couple of years. Obviously, the injury last year, and then this year has been a cluster. And they fired Robert Saleh, which you probably could put a pin on him. It seems like the ownership situation there seems pretty messy with Woody Johnson. It's not a well-run franchise overall. They apparently interviewed Louis Riddick to be the new GM. What are we doing, guys? If you're a Jets fan, I'm pretty pissed if you're saying, oh yeah, we're going to bring in the top guys. Oh, who are the top guys? Oh, Louis Riddick from ESPN, the talking head. Come on, give me a break. Bring in a serious candidate to interview. And then they're going to bring back Rex Ryan, which part of me says, or that they interviewed him, and they might bring him back. Part of me says that kind of rules. I kind of would love to see that, not going to lie. However, you can see just failure, stamped all over that if you're the Jets. Just failure. That's just failure. If you're a Jets fan, that's almost a comfort hire. Because you know what? You go back to the good old days where at least, Rex brought you to somewhere. 2 straight AFC Championship games. You can say that. Still, I do feel sorry for you Jet fans. New York football fans seem to be kind of on a tough go of it as of late. The Giants, they're probably going to lose out on their chance at Shador, which, pretty crazy. Drew Lock really screwed him over there. And I get it, these guys need want to play, and, they're not playing for the, for their teams to be bad or whatever. But still, not what you're looking for. It feels like a very Giants thing to do, to play yourself out of a chance at the top QB in the draft, or a top QB in the draft, because they kind of played out of both top QBs, which I think universally has been thought of as being Shador and Cam Ward. All right, just saying. In any case, folks, one last thing before we ship out. Thoughts and prayers to the good people of New Orleans and those who lost loved ones and those who died in the senseless tragedy in New Orleans on New Year's. Very terrible. They moved, obviously, in the sports perspective, we all know they moved the Sugar Bowl game, but, in the bigger scheme of things, that doesn't even matter compared to what people have had to go through these last couple of days, seeing loved ones perish. And they'll be in my prayers, and I hope they'll be in yours as well. That's all I wish. On a different note, I hope all of you have a great 2025 coming up here. New Year's is a time, it's a time of new beginnings. And some people will say that there's no difference between January 1st and December 31st, that this is just, there's no difference in your life. But it isn't true. It simply isn't. As human beings, we want to collect together periods of time. It's how we make sense of the world, And so while some people say, oh, well, in like in the real physical world, there's no difference between 2024 and 2025. Yeah, there is. Because it's what human beings make of it. And it's how we perceive the world. And it's how we keep alive our spirits. How we visualize rejuvenation. new beginnings. So don't get down on the idea that nothing has changed. Something has changed. This is a new period. The human spirit allows for second chances and rejuvenation. And I hope for all of you out there that you take advantage of that and make a great 2025 for yourself and for your loved ones and for the people around you. Thank you all for watching. I love you all. This has been Tommy Talk. See ya.